also one of Tabor's weightlifter, so that's how I kind of met Craig in the gym and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to cover a little bit of like really kind of boring information first, just my backstory, a little bit of shoulder anatomy and stuff like that. And then we'll get into the actual like demoing the drills, actually doing the drills, and move all the stuff kind of out of the way in the corners, that sort of thing, and we'll take it from there. So my kind of story is I've been more or less a lifelong lifter and athlete. Throughout high school and college, my sport was wrestling. And that's what got me interested in physical therapy, and especially the topic of shoulder health, because wrestling is quite the demanding sport on your shoulders. So my freshman year of high school, I suffered a decent shoulder injury, got a little bit of instability. It would start to like sublux a little bit, so it would partially dislocate from the joint, go back in without any medical treatment. And it was annoying, but it wasn't too bad initially. I was a stubborn teenage wrestler, so I didn't seek any medical treatment for it. Because of that, it got progressively worse over time. It would start dislocating fully, I would reduce it, and then it just kept on getting easier and easier to become injured. So fast forward into my junior year, I was in a match midway through the year. I had a full thickness rotator cuff and labral tear on my right shoulder. Didn't know it during the match. I ended up winning the match. The ref raised my hand at the end, and when he let it go, it just kind of flopped to my side. I was like, oh, that's not good. We need to go see somebody. So went to the hospital, MRI, surgery, all that sort of stuff. So that's what got me interested in physical therapy in the beginning, and like I said, especially the topic of shoulder health. So that's kind of my backstory with shoulder injuries. Do any of you guys have like prior experiences with shoulder injuries or dealing with anything right now that you'd be okay sharing? Yeah, what's going on?
Okay, so I'm actually like an athletic trainer, so I know better to like not do the things that I do, but I still do that. But it's kind of similar. When I was like, I ride horses, so I've had kind of like a lot of traumatic like falls on this side. So over time, I can sublux it. Kind of ignored it. That turned into thoracic outlet syndrome, which I now have. So on top of the pain, I am like perpetually numb in these two fingers.
Yeah.
And it's obviously thoracic outlet syndrome. Outlet. Like your thoracic, outlet. Like so, it just goes numb from here down to here, especially when I do like these motions. So I have that. It's like instability, like inferiorly, posteriorly, anteriorly. I can sublux it. Like I have an adduction, like not yet.
Have you ever subluxed it like in CrossFit, or has it been good?
No, it's been pretty good. It's mostly like if I like do like adduction, like I can get it. Like I thought it was a cool party trick in college to make people feel it. Like no, I've never done it.
Yeah,
I've
not
been doing it in CrossFit, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so just kind of all over. And I've tried PT and OT like on and off, but it's like, you know, they give me the basic like band drill, like I know it doesn't really do.
Yeah, you can do like 50 reps before you
it doesn't really do anything for me. So.
Alright, did they do any like higher level drills with you or anything like that, or was it kind of that like basic type of stuff?
Kind of like just basic like that, body weight, like ABCs, like stuff like generic, like cookie cutter, like this is shoulder strength,
Yeah. Not ideal for a higher level lift.
And then they told me not to do CrossFit, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, that's what every physician or PT is gonna tell CrossFitters, unfortunately. Anybody else have similar stories or anything like that?
Slap tear, just years of pitching, and actually that's what got me into CrossFit because I didn't want to do CrossFit.
How's it been since getting into CrossFit?
I could reach the plate real well. Every once in a while there's just like that little impingement and it just kind of goes on its own unless I sleep on it wrong. But the shooting pains I get, just the whole right side after pitching too.
Yeah.
So that and extreme walk right to the elbow, so then there's like, but actually CrossFit would be just kind of that stuff.
Yeah. Does it ever bother you with like snatches or anything like that, or is it pretty good here in the gym?
It's pretty good. Like high volume pull-ups, then I'll kind of feel it.
Okay. Anybody else with other injuries or anything like that?
I don't know what it is, but I wish I knew what it is. I, like 7, maybe 8 months ago, started to experience like discomfort, push through it like I shouldn't have during the opens, and like severely set myself back to the point where I couldn't even like hang on a pull-up bar. So I saw a physical therapist, I saw another physical therapist, then went and saw a sport and spine doctor that actually who thought maybe it's my neck, like a pinched nerve in my neck, so then he treated me for that. Then he changed his diagnosis again to maybe not my neck, back to my shoulder, but they don't think it's a tear. You know, I could do everything. I have all my range of motion. It's just what can I do pain-free versus what can I push through? And I can honestly push through anything if I wanted to, but it's pretty specific. Like I can press overhead, I can push up, I can pull, but if I get into a pull-up bar and I can do strict pull-ups, it's the getting into a hollow, like engaging my lats, and then wide grip, like snatches. I just did it for the first time in like 6 months. Yeah, fine, because it was 35 pounds.
Okay. Yeah, same before.
So just a lot of PT, a lot of drilling in, a lot of stuff at home. I did so much neck stuff for a long time. So I don't know if it was like a combo of a pinched nerve and then just like overuse. But the neck got better, the shoulder, now it's just like shoulder. And it's not like isolated, it's like here, it's my rhomboid, it's my lat, my trap, it's just.
Is that radiate down the arm or is it isolated?
At night. So it's actually the worst. Like I don't feel it right now at all, especially sometimes when I'm out. Like when I'm sleeping. The other thing was a year ago I had a kid, so I was breastfeeding and I'm carrying the carrier and I have a Jeep, so it was like hoisted up. So I actually don't think I did it in CrossFit. Like I think it was just strain over time. And get worse here. And I would like to feel better. So I can do it all again.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
So as far as these injuries go, like the main overall reason why injuries happen is because the load or whatever stress you're placing on the shoulder exceeds the shoulder's capacity. And the capacity of the shoulder is going to be dictated by a couple of different things. The overall mobility that you have in the shoulder, so how easy you can get into different positions will affect that, as well as the strength, endurance, and stability. So especially with CrossFitters, we see a lot of shoulder injuries as the most common kind of musculoskeletal injury, mainly due to like the overall demand on the shoulder with the sport. There are so many things that are incredibly stressful on the shoulder. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but in nearly every workout you're going to do, there's going to be a lot of shoulder demand. It's very clear in things like presses, snatches, clean and jerks, things like that, but also even things like wall balls, burpees, some things that you wouldn't assume stress the shoulder, add to that level of load capacity they're going to have to deal with at the shoulder. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to go over a couple of different mobility drills and stability drills that we can use to improve your positions and the efficiency that you get into these movements in CrossFit and build up the overall load tolerance for the shoulder. So before we get started with any of that stuff, do any of you guys have any questions beforehand? All good? Cool. So I want to get 2 volunteers, one person who knows that they have pretty good shoulder flexibility, and another person who has like historically dealt with shoulder tightness or limitations, that sort of thing, just so we can break down a couple different movements and see what they look like here on the floor. So does anybody know that they have really good shoulder motion?
Well, I'm hyper.
Yeah. So you'd be a great example. All right, you can come on up. Anybody who's historically like really tight or limited in the shoulder? Come on up.
Would you say like hyper versus hypo one lends itself more to injury? They're pretty like equal. Set yourself up to be predisposed.
They're pretty equal. They both will increase injury risk. It's just more so what type of injury. So people who are hypomobile, kind of stiff and tight, they're gonna have a lot more muscular strains and sprains, that sort of thing. People who are hypermobile, they're gonna have a lot more connective tissue injuries and also possible like subluxations and dislocations like your case. So why don't you guys all come on up over here, kind of like half circle. Are both you guys comfortable laying on the floor for a second too? So start with you, and you line it back, please. So there's 4 main movements that we're going to check out today. Those are the ones that are most commonly implicated with the movements of CrossFit that your shoulder is going to be put into. So it's flexion, external rotation, internal rotation, and extension. So I'm just going to move you through a couple different motions. Obviously, let me know if it causes any.
That's a lot on that.
All right, we'll stick to the right one then. So for shoulder flexion, that's coming all the way up overhead. Ideally, you should be able to reach the floor with your palm facing down, as well as your palm facing up. For most people, the palms facing up position is going to be a little bit more limited because that places your lat under a little bit more tension. Obviously, she has a ton of flexibility, so she can do that no problem. She could go through the floor if it wasn't there. For external rotation, this is important for things like snatching, overhead work, things like that. A lot of people do find that it's limited due to pec tightness, tightness of the anterior shoulder, those sorts of structures. So for here, with the arm out, you want to see the hand be able to rotate all the way down to the floor. So raise it. And in her case, she has way more than this actually needed. And then,
Is that a good thing?
it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. Yeah. If you can control your range of motion well, it's not a bad thing. The issue is a lot of people who do have like notably hypermobile joints or shoulders, they can't produce a lot of force at that end range position. So if you do find yourself there, like if you have to bail a snatch and you don't let go, then you can develop some sort of injury in that position. So next is internal rotation, which is being able to bring your arm down to the floor. This is a movement that not a lot of people think about, but it's actually pretty important for weightlifting. Obviously, to move efficiently with cleans or snatches, dumbbell snatches, you want to keep the load close to your body. So to do that, you have to use shoulder internal rotation if you're moving correctly. So for here, oh, that already feels
That's the good one.
yeah. You're going to rotate down to the floor. Normal amount of internal rotation is about 50 to 60 degrees, which is about right here. She obviously has quite a bit more. And this is usually limited by the back of the shoulder, the rotator cuff musculature, and the capsule on the back of the shoulder. I'm not surprised. Now, let me stand on that. And the last one is extension or moving backwards. Go ahead and turn the face that way, please. So for most people, should be able to get up to about 90 degrees passively if somebody else is doing it for you. Shoulder extension is important for push-ups, bench press, anything where you're moving your hands back towards your body like that. So that's perfect. That's a really good example of somebody who has awesome shoulder mobility. That's not really a limiting factor for your case. Now,
Example B.
let me have you line up back, please. So we'll go through all four motions again. So first one, shoulder flexion, palm down. It's definitely a little bit tighter. Does that feel stiff, or how does that feel? Now, palm up, we're placing the lat under a little bit more tension, so we're expecting it to be a little bit less, but ideally, we should still be able to reach the floor without too much resistance. And then, once she gets to here, if we go further, her palm wants to like rotate back to the other position just because her lat is really tight. So with her, we want to do one of the drills we're going to show later to work on that lat stiffness. For external rotation, we want to be able to get down to the floor. Is that painful or just stiff?
Stiff.
Okay. It's a little bit stiff there. For internal, at about 45, maybe 50, so we want to work on that a little bit too. And then come on. For extension, let me right about there. So you'll be a really good example for all the drills that we're going to do. If you're okay, kind of
Yeah,
demonstrate them. All right, awesome. So let's move the chairs kind of to the sides of the room. We're going to do a couple drills at the rack first, and then we'll actually go out onto the floor and do some So I'm gonna demonstrate the drills first with Tyler's assistance, and then we're gonna break up into groups of 3, 1 group per band. And we'll actually have all you guys rotate through the drills just so you can feel them yourselves, and you can also test your own motion before and after to see what type of improvements that you get. So the first one is an overhead shoulder opener. This is a great one to help open up that lat and improve the overhead flexion position. So just so you all can see, I'll do it facing this way. So you're gonna anchor a band up nice and high, usually on a pull-up bar or just high up on the squat rack if that's not available. You're gonna loop your hand in, and then you're gonna take a step back. You wanna get some tension on the band. This will help pull your shoulder forward a little bit and give some traction to the joint, which can help make it easier to stretch. And then you're just going to dip forward. You can do this a couple different ways. If you want to work mainly on the shoulder and a little bit less on the lat, then you'll keep your back nice and straight and just reach your chest forward for the ground. If you want to make this a little bit more targeted directly to the lat, you can rotate your hand, palm facing up, round your back a little bit, and then actually kind of step towards the other side. You should feel the stretch all throughout your lat. We're gonna have you hold it for about a minute, and then we'll have you retest. So for Tyler, let me have you lie on your back. We'll test your shoulder flexion. We'll have you do this one, and then we'll try it again, okay? So we'll go palm facing up. Just kind of take note of like how it feels, how stiff it is getting to this position here. And then let me have you try this. We'll do a minute on this side, on this rack over here, and then we'll retest. Okay? Yeah, I've got this one. So loop the hand in, go palm up towards the ceiling. Yeah, step back with the right leg. And then for you, I want you to do that lat bias version. So you're gonna round your upper back, step across, and you should feel a stretch all throughout your lat there. Hold it for about a minute. Yeah, keep the palm up. For this sort of stuff, you should feel a moderate stretch. A little bit of discomfort's okay, just because you're pushing to an end range position. But anything that's moderate, severe, that sort of thing, you want to back off the stretch just a little bit. How's it feeling so far? Do another 20 seconds or so. Then when we lie down, we'll test that move again and see what we got. Has anybody done this sort of drill before? All right, good. Good there. Then you lie on down, go back, we'll retest. Let's go palm towards the floor. How's that feel at the end range? Definitely get it before. All right, come on up. All right, guys. Let's break up into groups of 3 or 4, and I'll have each group, one here. Just go straight back from the rack. Don't go off to the side, just so you don't start running into anybody else. All right. So you guys can break up as needed. I'll help coach you through any of the movements, and then we'll head on to the next one.
Do you want us to test first or no?
Yeah, you can test out like your own shoulder motion first. If you feel limited, test it initially, see how it feels.
Yeah.
Try this out and then retest it. Test, so palm up towards the ceiling and then try again, calm down.
What if you can already like, I don't know how much.
Yeah, you're probably not gonna get too much out of it. I wouldn't want you doing this one. Yeah, you want to keep the elbows straight. Exactly.
Come back up to me real quick. Palm facing down and keep your arch to the front. I just want to see where it feels. But now the arch is a bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. When you're testing overhead flexion, try to keep your back on the ground. You might compensate for limited shoulder motion by arching your back, and you'll lose that contact with the elbow.
So how about I keep my hand here?
Like, tell me which one's better.
We'll say, that's my measurement for now.
Okay.
And then you want to go other way with palm down? So come up all the way up again, get this. Yep, there we go. Now let's turn.
right side looks a little bit better. It looks a little bit easier to get back.
How
in.
about the same?
Okay.
Sorry, I
You
feel.
might-
Let's mess it up.
Yeah, if you have like an injured side, it doesn't necessarily mean that side's going to be more limited with motion. You might have increased motion on that side, that might be like a contributing factor to
Don't worry, I have the 80 in my car.
Well, or I've just been drilling.
that. Yeah, you might have also just been working on it.
I have to use for work because, we're not on our football field right now, so I had to take my 80 from school. No, I didn't, actually driving around with an 80 in my car for
Yeah. Yeah, we actually have, you know, we have one.
Yeah.
Do we?
Yeah, right around the, right there.
No, I mean, I hope no one ever has a.
Yeah.
Come on, go back straighter, and then just push your chest forward. If you want to do more of the lat.
Gotta go breezer, right?
I know, isn't it, that's why I like lifting right here, because it's like I get the, breathe.
Yeah, with the breather too. How's everything going?
Good, how is everything with you?
Get ready to go back to school.
Not really
Oh,
sure, but
yeah.
you kind of mix that
Yeah. Wake up
stretch in
and say
there,
today's
so I was just
Saturday.
kind of getting the, you guys like a two different stretches.
Yeah.
Completely exactly, and I'm only speaking to
Well,
that.
going out is cool.
So when you're going back, you wanna keep your back
Yeah.
straight, and there's nothing you can't do, and then the next one is gonna be crossing that line.
Are you only pushing one?
Yeah, I have it first.
Okay.
Push your butt back in.
I used my knees for a lot last night, and I haven't used it in so long.
Yeah.
Thruster.
I just talked to my friend Christy Simmons. You know Christy?
Like flying around, like everywhere now, huh?
You, I don't know if she's been flying.
He said like.
But she, but she's like, I'm like, when are you coming home? She goes, at the very last minute.
So I can maybe like.
So Tuesday.
Yeah, I guess.
Push your body.
Great, you're out staring for like 10 seconds.
You should feel
Straight
very
10?
relaxed.
Straight 10. I can take my eyes off.
Alright, let's retest it.
Oh, God, yeah.
This is a thing I sat there for. Alright, so back down,
Yep.
nice and flat. Give me your arm up here.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Wow, look at that, guys. There we go. Alright, let's turn it.
The encouragement.
Yep.
Even when it's like.
Sorry,
don't know where. Good.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
still
different
okay.
shoulders than
That
you.
that
She
one
one of
is
your
the releasing of the.
No, they're using the second one.
She's been away for a while, but.
They're using
That's
that one.
releasing of
That's
the
super
lat,
short.
so that one is where we cross
I'm
over.
gonna scoot out.
Yeah.
but,
Cross, sorry, I think you wanna do the one. So the palm going down is, we wanna do more stretching with the
Yeah,
crossover, so you wanna go back to, where you're tucking your butt. So not, that back flat. So when you're here, you wanna go like, yeah, so we're gonna go like this versus this. And then-
Try the
Does that make
back
sense?
straight
Okay.
up. So
Sorry, you can tell I'm kinda learning as I
That's a
go.
good idea. This is the sort of thing like to teach
Right
people
foot back a little.
really
Yeah, there you go.
how,
Just let it
like,
happen.
doing a little bit of this before they work
Like a
out.
little bit of warm up?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
To increase your performance by
Yeah.
X amount of percentage?
No.
Yeah, like the band.
Yeah, there you go, that looks good, that looks really good.
And then kind of push your hips back, and then lean your chest towards.
Yep.
I'll see
Keep
you
your elbows straight. Pop up. Yep,
Oh.
take that.
Yeah,
Push.
like the band.
Go like
All the way
5
down. There you
seconds.
go.
1, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's move over here so someone else can use that.
Yeah.
Test it out.
I'll be here. I wish we could have something more like overhead one.
I'm Nicole, by the way, I think we've met before. Okay, alright. I'm like touching you on the face, like.
So Brian, you guys go back, you go back Tuesday, when do the kids come back?
Most people.
Like, I'm trying to watch, that's still a lot, way better.
I was in on
You
Thursday
definitely
for
want
Sunday.
to, for sure. Let's do that.
I would recommend it.
I have a half day.
Yeah, much better from when we started.
Better than
Nice,
all the
yeah.
teachers are back Wednesday.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And as for the.
Mind
this
testing me
one,
out here?
Not really, some.
Let's see what this looks like.
Everybody know what it is.
Alright, so my back is straight.
So we wanna help
Down
them?
is your shoulder.
Also,
You gotta just see how you
Just the fact that you wanna give your.
You're-
Mine actually good. I
Yeah.
have, my baby realized.
Yeah, you're good, yeah.
That's not good.
And that's
I mean, that one looks slightly different when you go palm down,
that's what
but
we're
not,
much different.
Really, like, actually-
not much
Yeah,
difference.
that should be, like here.
That's another, that's
That was
good.
definitely so you would do well with crossover.
Where's that at?
So than the other one.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard.
What's going on, coach?
Try and hold it. That's what the desk job.
Breathe out, yeah, breathe, and when you go, breathe out.
Alright, so this one's good though?
Yep,
That's good. This is good.
That's good.
breathe out.
I mean, that's really
Your
good right
thumb's
there.
like an inch away.
Get a longer thumb.
But I'm rotating now. I feel the rotation.
Yeah.
I feel a little.
Yeah, like you definitely have some lat stiffness. So for you, I would much more recommend the palms up, kind of rounded back crossover one.
Okay.
If you did that one, you'd have better improvements in range of motion than if you did the other one, because your regular overhead motion is fine. But when the lat's more tension,
Yeah.
then it's more limited. Now you're in the center.
I know, you.
And to feel it more, try
Even
like
if I were a good
push your
editor, I
ribs
probably could
towards
take it
the
out.
side. So kind of like
I'm not trying to edit.
that way.
If you want you in there, especially when you walk up to the camera and go,
Alright, so that's, you gotta retest. A little bit better? Alright, let's bring the bands down. We're gonna loop them around the squat racks next. Any other papers, witnesses?
Yeah.
Are you going to practice right after this?
No, I'm not, I'm waiting until I'm going to get like a vacation, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just doing a good process now.
It's too much heavy breathing.
Yeah.
Too much cardio. Oh, you're good. You can do it.
Extremely briefly.
Alright, so this next one is gonna be one that most of you guys will probably benefit from. This is to improve that internal rotation range of motion, which for most lifters is a little bit more limited, especially compared to overhead work. So to do this one, you're gonna loop the band over your elbow, and then you're gonna step away, kind of brace your hand against your lower back, and then you're gonna move forward to allow it to pull your elbow backwards. You can progress this either by like just holding here in this position for 30 seconds to a minute, or if you want to make it a little bit more intense, you take your other hand, allow your elbow to stay backwards, and then use that non-stretching hand to push your hand off your back. For this one, I wouldn't recommend holding it for super long. Hold that for like 5 or 10 seconds and do 5 to 10 reps instead of a whole like minute, 30-second hold. If you did a really long duration hold, that one's a little bit more common, just like aggravate the shoulder a little bit, especially if you're dealing with an injury. But if you do shorter holds more frequently, that one tends to work a little bit better. So for this one, man, you all test your shoulder internal rotation motion. So just to demonstrate that again, give me on your back, elbow to 90 degrees, and then you're gonna lower your hand down towards the floor. You should be able to get to a couple of inches, kind of like I'm showing here. But the one thing I want you to look out for is don't let the shoulder hop forward up off the floor. That's gonna be very common. So keep your other hand right on the top of your shoulder. If you feel that start to pop forward, stop there, and that's your actual end range. All right? So I'm gonna have you gues all try it out, and then we'll retest.
Yeah.
Switch it up? Alright. Jesus. Don't crush your legs.
Yeah.
That's good.
I got it.
Yeah. Oh, it's on the left side.
It's the whole side.
Oh, great.
Mostly just-
Okay, let's see what we got. So can we get this elbow to my back there? That's great. So you have to put it right here. How does that feel? Good? Okay. So keeping that back flat in here? Nope. That's not terrible.
Yeah, so for you, I was.
Am I doing anything? Zero movement. Yeah. I mean, I'll have to double check one, but I think that's pretty good. Yeah. Just go one more time here.
Well, mine isn't.
Back.
Who's the side? Who's the
There,
side?
I see it
Too
now.
bad.
Okay, so the shoulder.
Too little limited.
Puncher, yeah.
The what?
The camera's filming.
I like, I don't know,
You'll be a good one to see like what it looks like after that mobilization.
Yeah.
Come on, Haj.
For you, I would start just with the hand on the butt. Pull back like 30 to 60 seconds, and if you're feeling okay, then try a couple reps of like pressing the hand up off the back.
So just to double check again, like, so shoulders here, down, we're here. So I'm kind of just feeling when it starts to rise.
Yeah,
And it's like right there, so.
Yeah,
definitely.
that's big. Yeah, that's like.
Sorry, I
that
was
would be
giving you a
this
little,
hand.
okay. And that's, we're not testing the other way, right? We're just going that way first.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Look at me.
Is this also, sorry, I'll ask that if I can test in any way?
You want in?
Globally, the traps will absolutely affect the shoulder joint. None of these are directly related.
You want me on this one?
Trap stuff
Here?
won't affect shoulder range of motion as much. But like increased tension in trap might change how you're moving, especially with like overhead work. So it'll affect here.
Cross it, you
I just
have
pulled
back
it.
here.
Have your hand up a little bit higher.
And then I believe you're supposed to step forward.
I just feel
Let's see what he's saying.
Yep.
So,
And then
looks
try to
like-
turn your body so that you're like almost
This foot's gonna go back.
behind you. And if you want to go a little bit harder, use the other hand, push it. Now raspberry.
We get a little correction here, I wanna make sure.
I'm not if it's a
No,
ball.
I mean, for me, it's like,
I thought we were gonna do it in part.
Okay, so the foot that is,
Yeah.
hooked in here is gonna go back.
Yeah.
And then just lean forward here.
Yeah, for a lot of people, just going forward and that joint motion will be enough to get a stretch.
Renaissance dance. We're sitting right now.
If you want to get a little bit more of a stretch.
Sure, that's.
Brian, move it up closer to your elbow, up at your elbow, yeah.
So this elbow would be coming back here, we're saying, and then
And what are we
it's
trying
just
to
5 second.
do it at 90
and then
degrees?
relax for a second.
Start with it, your palm
On
under
your
your
butt.
butt. Here's on the back of your palm on your butt. And
Now
then
step back in.
actually like lean forward and up.
And now if this was
Great
easy
easy
form, then
distance.
we'd be taking the right hand and pushing that back.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright,
Feel
relax.
good?
One more
Do
time.
you think if I came to you,
Then
you
couple
grab
reps.
this, you don't even have to and not make me do the same thing I've been doing for 5
You
years.
can avoid
There-
that.
Yeah, you go over there, okay?
I need to.
Ralphie,
Very good. That we can help
I
with.
yelled at them into.
Obviously, I'm like Gary.
you're sweaty.
yeah, I'm trying to like stick it somewhere.
Where's the chalk?
From eventually
I might
getting-
need it.
He's like, I don't wanna get there. That's like-
You need chalk for stretching.
I get
Yep.
nervous.
At the
Two
end,
crosses
talk
over here.
about, like,
Alright,
what
thank
the
you.
evaluation is, and have to talk about it after the seminar. Yeah, I think it would be a really good idea. Even just like from my own personal experience, doing this sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
Address it.
I'd say now you're like 45.
Really not.
Yeah.
Very good.
I do, I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, the band stuff was
Yeah,
so
no,
fun, I
it's-
tried to do it before, like, for example, yesterday's workout.
Yeah, so you've got your
I usually do too, but
You're in a
Brian,
good
no,
place.
Well, that's
Where you're
so
going,
If you want to
but
stand
you don't wanna
So
lose.
save our mind.
And if that's not.
Like you said, you should get there.
Then try to turn the torso towards the other side.
No, I know, but you
Then
don't wanna,
press
you
beyond that,
know,
then
like,
you
so like,
take the
your
other
in
hand,
range of motion is what you should be, but you don't wanna lose
like
that, meaning you don't want it to, so if you can go from here to here, you don't want to end up where you can't, where you're going to there. I mean, you don't need to work on it way more, you just need to make sure you keep what you got.
Jeez, coach.
Nice shirt.
Where are you feeling it?
Where? Right here.
Okay.
Adeline!
You want to make
But
it
I
a little
also
bit,
feel it right here.
you want to make it a
So
little more
this one's
aggressive.
back.
Yep.
Then you can bring
Uh,
back
yeah.
a little bit higher. Try to turn your torso
And then I
over
think
from
it
that
was-
side. You feel a little bit more. And if you want to feel even more, use the left hand to push that right hand off your lower back.
We're gonna start doing all these stretches in the morning.
Remember when we used to do that for old days? We used to come in, we used to put the band on, we used to do this.
Everywhere.
We used to squat with it, we used to do like, put on elbow like this.
Okay.
Feel a little bit more.
Yeah, kinda like right up
You know something like that. Get the shoulders nice and bent. I mean, not bad, so I'm happy.
Tear or something, is too much
We'll alert the media.
You would know, because like, the actual stretching would be like really painful, like really aggravating your symptoms. Just having the tear by itself doesn't mean that stretching is bad. It can be a good thing if you're lacking that range of motion. But if you're doing the stretching, you're like, wow, that's really flaring up my pain, then you'd want to avoid that. Or just stretch a little bit.
When you say flaring up, like, not during the act of, but like afterwards.
Either way.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Any questions on the internal rotation one, or is everybody feeling pretty comfortable, confident with that one? Good.
Move the bands up.
Thank you. All right, so the next one we're going to cover is the shoulder extension drill. Again, we're going to have you guys test your own shoulder mobility first, try it out, and then retest. This test really requires kind of like a partner to help you out. Just kind of come on up here. So for the person who's getting their shoulder tested, I want you to stay nice and upright, keep your chest kind of tall, and your partner is going to stabilize the shoulder on the back side, and then just very gently pull kind of out and up. Just going until you feel a little bit of stiffness right there. The moment you start to feel some resistance, that's where I want you to stop. I don't want you to crank it up even more after that. So pull back and up. That'll be end range. Ideally, we're going to try to get to about 90 degrees. Tyler's is a little bit limited, so this one will actually be a good one for her. So that's how you test it. The actual mobilization is the band will be around the squat rack. You're gonna grab the band similar to the overhead stretch. But then what you're gonna do is you're gonna keep your palm down towards the floor. Step out with the same side leg. And then for some of you, just being in this position alone might be enough of a stretch. We'll do a longer duration hold, about 30 to 60 seconds. Or if it's not too much of a stretch, then what you can do from here is actually split squat or lunge down. Some of you might be able to get farther than 90, kind of like I'm getting. That's okay. If you're doing the lunge variation, go down kind of slow, pause for a couple of seconds, and then come back up. You should feel most of the stretch in pec, the front of your shoulder, and a lot of you will feel quite a bit of stretch in your biceps too, because that's being placed under a lot of tension in this one. So have you test your own shoulder mobility, try this one out, and then retest it with the same partner.
Do this.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about this.
Alright, ABP.
Want me to do your test?
Yeah.
I'm Brian.
I like this.
So like, okay. Alright. Okay.
So we're going
So you're probably like 55 degrees.
And on that leg is like
Yep.
twist back. Worse, right?
You get more.
And what? Try to stay straight.
Yes, we're trying to towards the left.
Just be like, let me
Yeah,
keep your shoulder.
right.
But yeah, that one actually works.
Skin
Try
on
one
the
that
right
one.
side.
That one's probably lacking 15 to 20.
Yeah, right there.
Elbow hit down.
It's like this one's here. This one's here.
Brian, we have some back.
It doesn't hurt, right?
So.
This is where arthritis comes from.
Let's see what we got.
Yep. Are Are you feeling the stretch already right there?
Yep.
I would just keep it right here for now. 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Bicep. That's shoulder surgery. Part of the bicep joss is above the shoulder. So when you're all the way back like that, it does press on quite a bit.
And this makes me realize the stretching feels so good.
Hit down.
Yep, that looks good. If you did want to progress it a little bit more, try to keep your chest up nice and tall, like
Feels good.
and then just lunge around.
I think also
Step forward a little bit more.
I
So
think
the
you
lunge
want to
is
do
over.
Yeah, he said up and out. Ryan, up and out, right?
Yeah, well,
Well,
not out to the side.
No, but-
You want to pull the hand kind of away from the shoulder
Yeah.
as you're pulling it up. That will prevent them from like dumping their shoulder
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah,
So-
you went from like this to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not probably 40.
so it's not necessarily here,
Yeah, you won't
but
be
it's probably just.
Like if it's a
You won't
big
be
fashion
working
big
straight, but as straight back.
Okay.
Stretching might help.
I don't think.
Go figure.
Yeah, you might show my.
I got no problem.
Yep.
A lot of people go.
I feel like
Why don't we do upper body warm-ups? I'd rather do that.
It will be a little bit out to the side.
I almost at 90.
If I do it by myself.
You're almost at 90.
This isn't warming up, this is stretching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Turn your elbow down towards the floor. Yeah, there you go.
Little less.
Little less?
Yeah.
Little
Alright,
less.
so we'll do less. Something to
Like does the same.
I got you, you got up on me.
Hands everywhere.
You're not happy.
I feel like everyone needs
Are you kipping or are you doing straight? Yeah, okay. Just keep the high volume down.
Calm down, see. Should I jump in on it?
I'm not wrong.
I've never
Yeah.
taken one of these classes.
That's why I started coming to Tony Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like,
Does it better with dumbbells versus the barbell, or is it just the motion? It's the motion.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Show me some attention.
Wait.
Thank you to be like.
Am I feeling better here?
Yeah. Doing great.
Did you do on this one
Nope.
too? Okay, well, that was the bad one.
Okay.
The one that was-
Yeah, that's the website.
It'd be nice if there was a place where the bands were just, like, we had a wall, and the bands were always hanging, and you could do that. I don't know if we can, I don't know if there's anywhere we can do it, but.
No,
It's just like, yeah, like.
I mean, it's just the music.
So,
Calm down, right?
I felt the stretch there.
So you feel nice.
As much as I hate to say it,
Oh, I did 3 sets on like 5-second holds.
Oh, yeah, you probably do a little bit longer, you should do it.
Calm down.
Yeah, it's probably like long head. The bicep, what do you think it like just? I know, but also it's a change.
Everyone in the class just stared at me.
Oh, that was trying to get her hands on her hip wall.
Yeah, like a lot of axis. Yeah, that's more strength.
Stands like, see Greg too much. Greg stands like that. Greg.
It is funny whenever I see Greg.
Wait, no, it's not. Are you talking?
Staying like that.
No.
Yeah, go see.
Whoa.
That'll just prevent you from like twisting.
I've been living there for like 7 years. Yeah.
You were right. Romantically, I don't know.
You're also just at 90.
Like literally just everyone thinks that. And I'm like, no.
I was just explaining. I really love those shoes.
Oh, the Vivos?
Absolutely great.
Yeah, those are awesome.
They're, yeah.
I got them when I was like powerlifting, because I was
You want to be moving forward, so that keeps you from rotating. Yeah.
these knives.
Yeah, they're definitely our energies. There was no flex today, so I'm like,
Yeah.
obvious, yeah. But those are,
Yes.
feel so.
So you'll be able to see it and watch it again.
Yeah. 7 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that covers most of like the mobility drills that we're gonna do today. Any questions on those, how to implement them, how to figure out if like which one you should do or anything like that, or is everybody good? Good? Cool. So next we're gonna go over 2 of my favorite shoulder stability drills for the CrossFit population. Let me know if you guys have seen or heard of these before. The first one is a kettlebell arm bar. Is anybody familiar with this? Yeah. Alright. So you can do this a couple different ways. The most common way, you're gonna hold the kettlebell normally. You're gonna keep your hand directly over your shoulder joint the entire time. So as you're moving, I don't want your hand to fall out to the side or across midline or anything like that. Opposite leg is out straight on the floor. Same side leg is bent with your foot flat on the floor. And then from here, you're gonna kick your leg over. Pause for a second or 2 in this position, and then come back. So the whole point of this is to control the shoulder position as you're moving your body. So it's working on shoulder stability in a bunch of different planes of motion. Again, when you're here, don't let it pull you back like that. Don't let it start to fall forward, and then come back. You can make this tougher a couple of different ways. The first is obviously just using a heavier kettlebell. The second is holding the bell in the bottoms up position. That'll make it a lot harder to keep it stabilized. It's gonna move around a little bit more. And another way is to not look at the bell as you're moving. So if you keep your eyes on it, it's easier to keep it in place directly over your shoulder. If you let your head move and turn towards where you're going, you have to focus just on the ability of like your muscles and structures in your shoulders to tell you where your hand is going. For most of those, I have my athletes do 3 sets of 5 to 8 reps per side. We only have a couple of lighter kettlebells, so we'll have to do this in group again.
We can grab some out there. There's a bunch out there.
Perfect. So I want you all to try some reps on each side of each of those different variations. So regular grip, bottoms up grip, and then also not looking at the kettlebell.
Yeah.
And Ryan, as far as doing this with a dumbbell versus a kettlebell, major difference?
The only major difference would be if you did the bottoms up variation.
Yeah.
Having the heavy end up just introduces a lot more
Sure,
flexibility to
sure.
it. You'll still get really good benefits doing the dumbbell.
Yep.
And that might be a little bit easier to load up heavier to work on like more strengthening.
Yeah, okay.
No, I try.
No,
Appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. And then I have my contact information up there. You can always like take a picture of it and then shoot me a text, you know?
Yeah.
We can take some pictures of the doors being hung today.
I will.
Do you want your scap to be
Arm out of the way.
Do you want your scap?
I'm house sitting at the room.
Yeah, I like to kind of put my hand up towards the ceiling, like.
I don't see money here.
Slightly.
Yeah.
Right over your shoulder.
Not a bad day.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah,
Not at all.
I'll see you. I'll probably take tomorrow.
I'll see you Monday morning.
Monday, yeah.
Now I'll see you Tuesday. Better go try out your chest. Working out.
Sweating with you. Are you gonna do 5 a.m.?
Every day.